and gentlemen, how's everybody doing today? Once again, on behalf of myself, Joshua Alvarez, and Kaplan Early Learning, I want to thank you for taking the opportunity and joining us today. We know we have a quick little session. Enjoy your lunch, but you know what? You're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to learn a lot of different experiences, and we're going to make sure everybody benefits from this. As you know, our topic today is STEM in the family or in the home. If you're a center based program teacher, if you're a home based teacher, or you're a parent, this presentation today is for you. Our focus here today is how to use the materials and tools and what we have around our home environment as a learning tool for our children. When we use our environment as a learning tool, that means we're setting up our environment for success through STEM or through STEAM. Now, why is it important to have a successful environment using these everyday household materials that we have? Well, because a successful environment offers opportunities for children to be those critical thinkers, to be problem solvers, to practice, to learn, to create, explore, and develop. What we want to offer on a daily basis, just like a center base, but at a home environment, is we want to give every single child an inspiration. We want to inspire their learning. That's why everything we do with children has to be meaningful, has to be purposeful, has to be targeted. There has to be a reason or an educational reason why we're offering an experience to a child. And ladies and gentlemen, that is what STEM's all about. As you know, STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Now, when we work with STEM or we utilize STEM, STEM is not an activity. An activity is something that you give to a child and say, here, play with it. STEM is actually an experience, something significant, something that the child is going to benefit from. So, what we want to do on a daily basis, we don't want to offer activities, we want to offer experiences. So, have in mind, STEM happens every hour, every minute, every second of the day. That's why it's very important for all of us to get involved. Maybe you say, well, Josh, can we use everyday household items? If you see here, I have a spoon. I have a spatula out here. How can we use these resources? How can we use these materials as learning tools? Well, the secret is, and the point is, being more intentional when we use them with children. If we start reflecting on what we already do on a daily basis, things that we do, how we utilize them, you're already implementing STEM. The only thing we have to do is be a little bit more intentional. Ask those key questions that will help child create ideas, develop ideas through science, technology, engineering, and math. That's why on a daily basis, we have to evaluate our strategies. We have to evaluate our approaches. We have to evaluate our environment and the different resources we utilize on a daily basis. And remember, the basic of STEM is asking those key questions. That is going to encourage predictions, what the outcome may be, what the child may say. What do I need to extend my resources? Why do we want to do this? Because we want to develop the thinking child. We want to make sure that child utilizes his thinking skills or his or her cognitive skills. So this way, instead of having activities, he's having an experience. And especially don't ever forget using those great thinking, processing questions that we usually know as open ended questions. For example, what do you think would happen if? How can we find out? What makes you think so? And the reason we want to do that, ladies and gentlemen, because we want to make sure that children on a daily basis develop their skills with their senses, have them observe with their senses. We want them to become critical thinkers. We want them to become problem solvers. We want them to develop that vocabulary. We want them to explore and go deeper, communicate. We want them to be persistent to discovery. And all of this, ladies and gentlemen, develops the thinking child and encourages the child to use his or her imagination. So, some of the activities, experiences that we're going to have today, you're going to see it's not only geared to preschool children or older children. But wait a second, here's the question. Can an infant also benefit from STEM? Can a toddler benefit and participate from STEM? The answer is yes, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm going to show you today different levels of how to do that. Are you ready to get started? Well, today we're going to talk about the power of water. We're going to talk about the power of air. So I want everybody to put your hands up in the air, face your palms together, and I want you to wave them back and forth like this. There we go. We are the world. No. Okay. Do you feel the air between your hands, ladies and gentlemen? Think about that. Waving your hands left and right, you may say, well, wait a second. How is that STEM? Sometimes we take air or oxygen that we breathe for granted, ladies and gentlemen. Although we can see it, but you know what? It is around that. Put your hand in front of your face. At the count of three, I want you to blow into your hand. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Now, what I want you to do now is take a deeper breath, hold it for 1 second, and then blow into your hand. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Do you feel the difference, ladies and gentlemen? When you blew slower, when you blew a little with more pressure into your hand? This is a simple way to start experimenting and letting children know about the difference between how air makes an impact on us. When we utilize air at a certain rate, when we utilize air at a different rate, what really can happen? And those key questions: how? Why? What do you think would happen? So let me show you a simple experience that you could do with children. This involves a balloon and it involves a paper cup. Now remember, when you use balloons, when you use household items, make sure safety is the priority. Very, very important. We don't want to use sharp objects, okay? If you utilize balloons, I prefer for the adult to utilize and manipulate the balloon and let the child support you. So what I did, I have a little water paper cup. I created a slit in the paper cup. So what I did is I threaded the balloon through the slit of the paper cup. What we're going to do now is we're going to blow up the balloon. And we're going to hold it. Now, my question is, will the balloon fly up? Will the balloon fly down? Or will the balloon go all over the place? Are you ready to try this? What do you think? Here we go. Count of three. 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait a second. The balloon and the paper cup went sideways. Does that mean that, well, the experience we're doing right now failed? It does not, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to remember something. In STEM or in science, there is no right and then there is no wrong. The goal here is not the end product or what happened. We want to know and we want to investigate why that happened. So let's investigate. We said we threaded the balloon. The paper cup is facing up. Now, what would happen if I flipped the cup upside down? Remember, the cup was up. What would happen if I flipped it upside down? Well, let's try it. Well, do you think it'll go up? Do you think it'll go down? Do you think it'll go sideways? Well, the response here is, ladies and gentlemen, you never know until you try. Let's try. So we blew up the balloon. We flip the cup upside down now. What's going to happen? Oh, look at that. It went a little higher, but then it went to the side. So here's when we get to experience an experiment. Why do you think that happened? Do you think the balloon had too much air? Maybe you think the balloon did not have enough air.
Gracias.
Or maybe the cup had too much of a hole. You know what happens sometimes, ladies and gentlemen? Sometimes we work with children on a daily basis, even in our home environments, and we say, well, what do I do? What else do I do with my child? Well, look at this. We just came up with 4 different ideas or 4 different experiments, ladies and gentlemen. The focus here, ladies and gentlemen, is not just to play with the child or have an activity with the child, but really go in depth. We want to make sure we develop that thinking child. We want to make sure that child turns into a critical thinker. Because if you show the child, you work with the child on a daily basis to become a critical thinker, and you do that consistently, guess what he or she's going to be doing on his own or her own? The same thing. They're going to be asking you, Mommy, Daddy, teacher, what do you think was going to happen? They're going to be using the same vocabulary and that same imagination just as you do. It's something else with the power of air, ladies and gentlemen. Let's say, for example, I have a pump. What else can we utilize that we could utilize power of air so it could move? Well, let's use some everyday household items. A lot of us have a lot of cotton balls, maybe around the home that we utilize. Hopefully, we utilize them as an experiment and we don't really need them for another situation. So look at this. Simply pulling the air and blowing the cotton balls. Oh, look at that. It'll blow. So why do you think when I blew the cotton balls, it blew away? Well, let's try something else. How about if I use, well, a soap container? If I blow on the soap container, do you think it's going to move? Or do you think it's going to stay? You never know until you try it. Let's see. Wait a second. It's not going anywhere. But let's try the cotton ball. Look, the cotton ball flew right out of the table. But wait a second. How about if we try something else? How about if we try this piece of wood that I have here? Wait a second. That didn't go anywhere. So if I ended this there, ladies and gentlemen, that would be an activity. But what we want to develop an experience. We want to develop the thinking child. Now we go back and ask those quality questions. Why do you think the cotton ball flew off the table, but the piece of wood did not? And this is the opportunity when the child experiences. The child manipulates. The child puts this in their hand. And you got to make sure, ladies and gentlemen, that the teacher, if you're a parent, is not the one that's blowing this off the table. But who do we want to make sure that blows this off the table? The child. When a child utilizes his or her senses, The more senses he or she uses, the more concrete experiences that child is having. Because children are not only auditory learners, ladies and gentlemen. Children are not only visual learners. They love tasting, they love touching, they love transforming. I want to think about our toddler teachers out there. Or wait a second, our infant teachers out there. Sometimes I get parents and teachers that say, oh no, Josh, babies are too small to learn. They're not, ladies and gentlemen. Do you know when a baby starts learning? Since he or she is in the mother's womb. And here's the $2 million question, not the million because of inflation. The $2 million question. What is the first thing that a baby learns in the mother's stomach or in the womb? Is it the mother's voice? Is it what the mother eats? The first thing the baby learns is something that baby's listening to for 9 straight months. Boom, 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 boom. Yes, the heartbeat, ladies and gentlemen. So when somebody says that child is too young to learn, you heard this expression, right? And you heard this saying that the first 5 years are the most important years in a child's life. Well, let me tell you something. The first 3 years are the most crucial years in a child's life. So we have a responsibility as educators. We have a responsibility as parents. We have a responsibility to support the parents also too. Because there's an old saying that says, and let me know if you believe this, that it takes a village to raise a child. And that is true. When we all work together, when we all partnership together, we become united, we become stronger, and children benefit more. So I asked, well, what about infants? Well, ladies and gentlemen, there's questions that you're not going to ask infants as you would ask older age or children. So some of the experiments that we're doing right now, that would be for an older child. But the younger the child gets, the less vocabulary, but you still utilize vocabulary. But Josh, what about an infant that's maybe 6 months? What about if he's 10, 11 months, or he's a mobile infant or not a mobile infant? How about utilizing resources and materials with different textures? By you simply putting something in a baby's hands, you know what you're implementing? Science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. That's how you give a child a head start. But putting different textures in his or her hand, putting different sizes in his or her hand. And look at these. These are resources and materials that we have around our own environment, especially their home environment. And one of the things that we have to encourage is when we work with families, educators, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you encourage for them to buy resources or materials, or as we call them, toys, that the child benefits from, that the child will get an experience from. Look at this ball with different grooves. When that infant or that toddler or any level gets that, there's a different experience you have. Look at this other ball. Different texture, different experiences. If you're the kind of person that you love shapes, well, there's no problem. For infants and toddlers, soft triangles, soft circles, squares, so on and so on and so on. So have in mind, whatever we do here, ladies and gentlemen, you could take it to the next level if that's your age group, or you could always bring it to a lower level of age group. Because remember, it's all about the different ages and stages of development, ladies and gentlemen. But it's up to us to encourage children to utilize their imagination. Now, how many of us have measuring spoons at home? Well, if you have the opportunity to have color measuring spoons, or you could get a piece of maybe sticker that's a color sticker, piece of paper, and put color different colors in different spoons, you could create your own experience. So what I did here is around my home, we play a little game that's called ping pong. So I got some of my ping pong balls, and then guess what I did with each ping pong ball? Yes, I color coded it with different colors. I have a red one, I have a green one, I have a yellow one, and guess what this experience is? For smaller children, if we're talking about older infants or we're talking about toddlers, it's simply finger grasping the item and putting it in the measuring cup that coordinates with that. How do you take it to the next level? Once we're at that level, how about doing an obstacle course with that? How do you take it to the next level? Well, how about the child, him or herself, picking it up from the table? How do you take it to the next level? If you're at that age where your children are learning maybe their name, maybe certain letters, look at that. Put letters on your ping pong, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. If I put letters in that, I also could put numbers. If I put numbers in that, I also could put shapes. Ladies and gentlemen, the possibilities are in this. Sometimes we say, oh my gosh, I don't have nothing for my child to develop his skills. You're using simple household items. We just used one. We just created 5 different experiences. When you work with parents in the home environment, or if you're a parent in the home environment, one of the things that you don't want to encourage parents to do is buy. Especially right now, ladies and gentlemen, how the economy is, we want to make sure we support the parents by encouraging them to use their own products or their own materials within their home. Oh, I got to share something with you. Let's move ahead right now into the power of water. Okay? So here's what I have. Are you ready? Hope my wife doesn't get mad, okay? I have one of her containers, okay? Where she usually, when I go to work, she puts some fruits, she puts some vegetables. So I got one of the plastic containers. I filled it up to the halfway, okay? Regular top water, that's fine. Regular top water, and I put it in the container. Then I got a water bottle. I filled it up with water, and then I'm sitting it in the container. Now, have you ever spoke to children, if your children are at that age level, about rain, how it rains? When a child goes, teacher, look, it's going to rain. Instead of saying, oh, yeah, you're right, it is going to rain, how about we say, Carlos, what makes you think it's going to rain? Oh, teacher, because it's getting dark out there. And if I stop it there and say, you're right, okay, children, let's go outside and play, that's an activity. But we want to make sure we turn it into an experience, ladies and gentlemen. So here's how we continue the conversation. Well, Carlos, why do you think it's dark out there? Oh, teacher, because the clouds, and when my mommy or my daddy says that the clouds are dark, then it rains. What did you just learn from the child? You learned from the child that the father and the mother are working with the child and they talk about rain. They talk about how it rains. But sometimes children don't visualize or they have a challenging time visualizing it. Well, let's take that experience into the home environment. So you know what I'm going to do right now, ladies and gentlemen? I hope you're ready. Pull out your umbrellas, pull out your raincoats. I'm going to make it rain in this room. Hopefully my wife doesn't do that, okay? But I'm going to make it rain, okay? I'm going to make it rain. So are you ready for this? I'm going to open the water bottle. Then you're going to see water pouring out. But then I'm going to make it stop raining. Are you ready? Here we go. Count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Look at that. It's raining. Oh, all of a sudden the sun came up and it stopped raining. How did that happen? You know what I like to do? I always like to read a story. I like to sing a rhyme or sing a song that connects it with this. This is a great experience, ladies and gentlemen, because a lot of children don't really get the concept how it rains. Children say, when my mommy said that the clouds get happy and then it opens up and then it rains. Well, that's the experience in your environment. So, how do I connect it to a story? Well, the way I do it is I read that famous book that's called The Itsy Bitsy Spider. Remember what that says? It says the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Then what came down? Down came the rain and washed the spider out. And you know how the song goes. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to sing the song, okay? Are you ready? Everybody, count of three. Everybody get your spiders. You could use these kind of spiders, these kind of spiders, these, whatever turns you on. No problem. Are you ready? Count of three. Everybody. One, two, three. The itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the itsy bitsy spider went up the spout again. But wait a second. How did this happen? How did the water come out from the bottom of the bottle? Oh, well, Josh, you may be squeezing the bottle. No, I wasn't squeezing the bottle. You may say, Josh, or the child may say, Josh, teacher, it has holes. Nope, doesn't have holes. Wait a second, doesn't have holes? No. But look what I did. I opened the top, the water comes out. I close the top, the water stops. How does this happen? I want you to use your imagination. I want you to use your cognitive skills. Josh, it must have holes. Okay, it does have holes, okay? But here's my main focus on this. Notice what everybody's doing right now? Everybody's going, what if it doesn't have? That's what we want to do on a daily basis, ladies and gentlemen. We want to make sure children utilize those thinking skills, utilize their cognitive skills. We want to develop on a daily basis the thinking child. So, tell you the secret, okay? This actually has holes in the bottom. Are you ready for this? You want to know how many holes? It has 21 holes. You're like, what? 21 holes? Look, Josh, nothing's happening. This is the power of air, ladies and gentlemen. Notice when I release or open the top, the water goes out. Then when I close it, it stops. Why? See this little space between the water and the top? There's air, ladies and gentlemen. It's called a vacuum. It's actually holding the water up. It's holding it up. Once I release the vacuum, or it's not holding it no more, gravity takes over. Close it, it happens again. Now, would this work with a 2-liter bottle? Would this work with a regular water bottle? Would this work with a milk jug? Would this work with a cup? Well, ladies and gentlemen, you never know until you try it. Notice, we came up with what? 5, 6 different ideas or suggestions? You know what those are called, ladies and gentlemen? Those are called 5 or 6 different experiences that you're going to try. So there's no excuse for us to say, what do we do? What do we do? I don't have nothing to do. You have 6 different experiences. Now, how can we extend water and the power of air? Well, how about if we create a little boat with one of our water cups? So I'm going to put my water cup in the water. And what I'm going to do first, I'm going to try blowing it with a straw. Now, if you utilize a straw, I'm using bigger straw. These are like boba straws with a child. Talk about the safety rules and make sure you know what age group you're utilizing these straws. So I'm going to put it in one corner of the container and I'm going to try to blow it across, okay? Oh, look at that. It did blow across. Wow. But wait a second. A little while ago, didn't I use the air pump? Well, let's see what happens. Children, do you think if I blow it with the air pump, it would travel faster or it would travel slower? You never know until you try it. Let's do it again. Look at that. It did travel. So you're experimenting, ladies and gentlemen. You could experiment with different items, with different things. Well, wait a second, teacher. If we used a small cup, would it work with a different cup? Would it work with a coffee cup? Would it work with a different cup with a different material? You never know till you try it. Wait a second. We have the water. Think of some ideas that we could do with this water. You got it. What about if I add some detergent soap? Then with that detergent soap, I mix it up. And have in mind, who's the one that's going to be mixing this up? The child's going to mix it up. And because lack of time, ladies and gentlemen, we're on a schedule. How many of you have these spoons with different holes? We just created an opportunity. I don't know if you can see them there, but to make bubbles. Well, this one has bigger holes. This one has smaller holes. Do you think I could create bubbles also with the smaller hole? You never know till you try it. But teacher, or mommy, or daddy, what about the one we use to make the huevos, to make the eggs? Will it work with that? Or what about if I use a spoon with no holes? Would I be able to create bubbles? You never know until you try it, ladies and gentlemen. The beautiful part, you have so many resources and materials within your home environment. As long as you utilize your imagination, ladies and gentlemen, you could create awesome experiences. Now, can I do this experience with infant and toddlers? Yes, I can, ladies and gentlemen. Just have in mind, the younger the children are, the more supervision you are going to require. I'm going to share something with you. I used to be an educator myself. I was a teacher for around 13 years, just like you, an early childhood teacher. And sometimes you have teachers that say, no, 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 well, we don't want them to get into the water, or we don't want them to play with play sand. And the main reason some teachers say that is because they say they're going to make a mess. Well, ladies and gentlemen, when a child makes a mess, that means the child is learning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, but I have to clean it up. No, we all together participate and we clean it up. And that's part of science too. Okay? Having a clean environment, picking up the environment, and having a safe environment. But wait a second, ladies and gentlemen. How about water bottles? What do you do with your water bottles usually? I hope you recycle them. Well, you know what I create with my water bottles, ladies and gentlemen? I create bowling pins. Any size of ball you could utilize, and any age group could be involved in that. You put them in the floor as pins, you roll the ball, and the aim for the bowling pins. Wait a second, but I have older age children. No problem. They're at that age level where they're learning letters or they're learning their name. Put letters on your water bottles. Oh, Josh, yeah, but I'm already learning number. Well, guess what these have? And you know how much they cost you? Zero, nada. I went to my neighbor's trash can last night and I pulled them out from her trash can. Just make sure you do clean the bottles. Wait a second. How many of you have played the I Spy game? This is the simplest thing you could do with any age child, ladies and gentlemen. Well, Josh, I have infants. Well, simple infants is just by simply putting something in front of their face and moving it slowly to one side and moving it slowly to the other side. Are you my infant teacher? Have you ever put an item or an object in front of an infant and moved it slowly? What does the infant do? Doesn't it follow that? They will follow that, ladies and gentlemen. As they progress, as they develop into the next stage, you could visually look at other items. As they progress, you could use something that you have in your kitchen. Guess what I just made? I made binoculars, ladies and gentlemen. How did I make them? Got a paper towel roll. I get a lot of teachers that use, or a lot of people that use toilet paper rolls, but for hygiene and cleanliness reasons, I recommend paper towel rolls. Get a paper towel roll. I just cut it in half. What did I do after that when I cut it in half, ladies and gentlemen? Got some tape, taped it around, some yarn lying around. You don't have yarn? Old shoelace, and there we go. You just created your binoculars. You could play the I Spy game. If your children are older, you get a flashlight and you point at the item and they look for that item. You could do it through colors, you could do it through shapes, you could do it through anything, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wait a second. Let's open our imagination. What else can we do? Have you ever gone on a bear hunt? I'm going on a bear hunt. I'm going on a bear hunt. Or I'm going on a nature walk. About taking your children outdoors, ladies and gentlemen, and collecting different things from nature. Things you find outdoor in your own environment. Then you bring them. I would recommend if you have the opportunity to sit outside because STEM happens especially outdoors, but you could utilize your indoor environment as a learning tool too. If you don't have the opportunity to be outdoors, come back to your indoors and start exploring that. Oh, but wait a second. I also could use these items as sink and float. So I have a piece of wood here. I'm going to put it in the water. Do you think it'll sink, go to the bottom, or do you think it'll float? I have another item that I found outdoors. Do you think it'll sink, or do you think it'll float? You never know until you try. Let's try the piece of wood. Here we go. Will it sink or will it float? Oh, wait a second. It floats. Let's try another one. That one also floats. But let's try now a rock or a pebble or something you find outdoors. It went to the bottom. Now this is where you use your imagination. This is when you use your cognitive skills. This is when you start developing the thinking child. Why do you think this went to the bottom or sank? Why do you think this one floated? And so on, and so on, and so on, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, because of lack of time, I gotta share something with you real quick. Are you ready for this? How many of you have played with your family the Uno game? If you have the Uno game, or just like me, I have different kinds of games that I play with family or social gatherings. You could utilize this with children at different levels. Because think about this. Uno has what? Numbers and colors. Let's say you're at that age where children are already recognizing and learning their numbers. Well, you know what I do, ladies and gentlemen? Child flips it over. 4. Guess what the child does? The child puts 4 different clothespins. Oh, what's the next number? Oh, teacher, that's a 2. Or, oh, mommy or daddy, that's the number 2. Show it with your fingers. So how many are we going to put there? We're going to put what? We're going to put 2. You just recycled your game. Now you just turned it into an experience where a child can use his imagination in different ways. Oh, gotta show one more thing. Really? Okay. Piece of paper. If I measure my wrist to my elbow, ladies and gentlemen, like this, that is the size of my foot. What? Yes, measure your wrist, measure to your elbow. That is the size of your foot. Now, you want to know your height? Wait a second. What can I do to measure my height? You measure from your index finger to the other index finger, and that's how tall you are. Now, Josh, you gotta be kidding. Try it, ladies and gentlemen. Try it. Give me a call if it doesn't work. But how does that work? Now, do you remember when you were a child that your mom, maybe I may be dating myself, I don't want to tell you my age, but maybe, do you remember when your mom went to the store, got a pair of pants, put her elbow at her wrist, and made a fist? Yep, that fits my son. That's the size of your waist. If you gained a little weight, well, you open your fingers. That's a different story. But that's your normal size of your waist. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are perfectly made. We are perfectly created. We are perfectly distributed. If we were not, then we would have a problem with our balance and the way we do things on a daily basis. So, what is the focus on this, ladies and gentlemen? Utilize your imagination. If you have popsicle sticks that you have ice cream with your children, save the popsicle sticks, recycle them, and look at this number, math, dots that correlate to the number. How about with the same popsicle sticks? Creating puzzles of different things, creating your name, and don't forget, within your home environment, we all have fruits. We all have vegetables. Who doesn't know a banana? Talk about the banana, where the banana grows. Taste the bananas, but I recommend is to bring fruits and vegetables that children don't usually eat on a daily basis. Like a yam, like ginger. Have the child smell it. Have the child taste it. Then you have the opportunity to create an experience with the child that the child's never going to forget. And I guarantee you, when those children are growing up, ladies and gentlemen, if you're a parent and when your children grow, they're going to say, Mommy, Daddy, remember when I was a little boy? Remember when I was a little girl? All the experiences that we used to have? Or teacher, has it ever happened to you when you're walking through a store or you're walking through the mall or wherever you go? You have a child that runs up to you and says, Teacher, 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 teacher. Why does that child run up to you? And that child gives you a hug. And maybe that child was 2, 3, 4. Now that child's 10, 15, even 20 something years old. You know why they remembered you? Because of the value and the quality experiences you offered on a daily basis. So, ladies and gentlemen, remember, let's set up our environment for success. Let's utilize our environment as a learning tool. And the key here is we want to make sure children explore, they experiment, they get actively involved, they analyze, they reason, they deepen their imagination because we want to develop the thinking child. And remember, the future depends on the decisions you make today. On behalf of myself, Kaplan Early Learning, and Joshua Alvarez, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and you have a wonderful day.